The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deval Patrick. I used to be governor of Massachusetts, but that's not where I started. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I lived there with my grandparents, my mother and sister, and our grandparents' two-bedroom tenement, some of that time on welfare. And still, my grandmother used to tell us we were not poor, just broke, because broke, she said, is temporary. I am today announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. Come be a part of this. We will build as we climb. To welcome other teachers and learners, other seekers of a better way and builders of a better future. This won't be easy, and it shouldn't be. But I'm placing my faith in the people who feel left out and left back, who just want a fair shot at a better future, not built by somebody better than you, not built for you, but built with you. Now let's get started.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. That was Deval Patrick, former governor of Massachusetts. He was the outgoing governor as I was moving to Massachusetts. I think I was there for maybe 3 months while he was governor. And after he left the governorship, he went directly to Bain Capital, the very company that he lambasted alongside with Barack Obama in 2012, in the 2012 election. Now, to be fair, it was more so Barack Obama going directly after Bain Capital, while Deval Patrick went directly after one of the founders of Bain Capital, Mitt Romney. And then immediately after he left office, he went to work for Bain Capital, which became the very personification of vulture capitalism, particularly after the 2012 election because of Mitt Romney. I fully expected that he would never try to run for higher office because he made that move. But here he is running for president of the United States. Now, I don't know. I like him as a person. I really liked him after his 2012 DNC speech. He certainly had a bright future in the Democratic Party after that speech in 2012. But I think what we're seeing is an entire generation of Democrats. And this isn't age-based. This isn't an okay boomer thing. This is a grouping of people who have a certain perspective of progressive politics in this country, and they put a limitation on how far that progressivism goes. And what you have are a lot of Democrats who are in office or have aspiration for office, like I think Jon Ossoff here in Georgia falls in that category, along with Pete Buttigieg. He falls in that category, who are trying to preserve what the Democratic Party was before, quite honestly, before the left started demanding more, before Occupy Wall Street, even before Bernie. Bernie has been consistent for years, but it was the Occupy Wall Street movement. Even whatever problems the Occupy Wall Street movement had, that signified a shift in left-wing politics in this country. And the demand that the Democratic Party become more of the party of the left, as much as the Republican Party is a party of the right. The Democratic Party, everyone knows, has been a centrist party, and that centrism based on American politics. That's not even centrism based on international politics, because the Democratic Party here in the United States, as it has been run for the last 30 years, is really a right-wing party. It's the Conservative Party of the UK. So the Democratic Party here in the United States really is a conservative party based on international standards. And so the left in the United States of America, matter of fact, the left, most of us on the left in the United States of America, we're not radical by any measure on the international stage. We simply represent the opposition party to most of the conservative parties. Like we're standard fare leftists. I mean, I know some hardcore socialist communists, right? Know plenty of them. But the majority of the left in this country that everyone is trying to make you afraid of, including people in the Democratic Party, we really just represent standard, milquetoast leftism on the international stage. And the reason I went off on that tangent is because I want you to understand that's what Deval Patrick represents. He represents a generation that is gone, a generation that's trying to hold on, a generation that an ideological. You can align it with age, right? But it's purely ideological. There's plenty of older people who are far more radical than me. But Deval Patrick, while I like him as an individual, I think he's a decent human being. I knew in 2000, I believe he left in 2013, when he left to go to Bain Capital, that would be a problem for him when he decided to run for president. I assumed that he was just going to go and make his money and leave public office. Because I'll be honest with you, like to a certain extent, get your money. When you grow up in poverty, the way he described, I don't know how much it is. I don't know how true it is, or if it's apocryphal, or if it's just kind of a myth that he's making, that he grew up on welfare. Maybe they were on welfare for a day versus me being on welfare for the good portion of my childhood. But when you grow up in that situation, you do want to establish wealth, and you want to establish security, right? So that's fine, but just keep in mind, that's not what we want our politics to be. We have had for such a long time this symbiotic relationship between the business sector and our politics, and we always Democrats. This has been the problem with Democrats forever. They assume that what's good for the economy is good for politics, or what's good for business rather is good for the economy, and that's not the case. Particularly if you're the party of the people. And so here we are. We have a venture capitalist from the premier vulture capitalist company, Bain Capital, running for president. And again, you're not going to find me attacking his character. I don't really do that except for people like Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg. I'll gladly attack their characters. I have nothing to say about his character other than if he actually wanted to be president of the United States, he made a mistake when he went to Bain Capital, because we on the left, we're not having it. Now, this is him. Listen to him before he went to Bain Capital.
My message is this. It's time for Democrats to grow a backbone and stand up for what we believe. Quit waiting for pundits or polls or super PACs to tell us who the next president or senator or congressman is going to be. We're Americans.
We shape our own future. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, when I heard that speech, I'm like, okay, this guy most certainly will be a presidential candidate. Absolutely. But then he decided to go to Bain Capital. I mean, there's a lot of way to make your money, but when you go to the very company that has become the symbol of the very worst of capitalism and the excesses of capitalism, and then you want to be the president of the party, ostensibly of the people, and that's the thing. He's trying to be the president of the old Democratic Party. And what this entire generation, or this entire grouping of ideological, of this particular ideological grouping of Democrats, what they are insisting on is maintaining what the Democratic Party became in the late 70s to the early 2000s. And what this generation, or this ideological grouping, however old they may be or however young they may be, what we're telling them is that that's not going to work. That will not happen. Of course, the political strategy here, I think, is to water down New Hampshire as much as possible. Deval Patrick has a lot of weight there, and he in that region, because he was governor in the new in Massachusetts, one of the biggest states in New England. And so that's exactly what he probably is going to do. But here's the thing. Elizabeth Warren is extremely popular in the region as well. And I think if anything, he is going to not dip so much into Elizabeth Warren. And maybe he will. But he's certainly going to water down Biden. He's certainly going to water down Buttigieg because this is who Deval Patrick represents. And this is why he's in the fight. He's there to represent the last great hope of the former Democratic Party. And people keep trying to say, people insist on saying that Elizabeth Warren is not, or rather she is the darling of the establishment. You can't say that in good faith if you look at how hard the establishment is trying to find a replacement for Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg. Joe Biden is the darling of the establishment. Buttigieg is the darling of the establishment. Neither one of them are going to work, and they are desperately trying to make sure that Warren nor Sanders becomes president.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Oh, man, that music hits so hard. Yo, listen, we did turn the music down a little. We did not hit our goal, but I want to make sure that the two people who became patrons know how much I appreciate them. So we're going to have a patron party anyway. Special shout out to Charles Metcalf for becoming a patron on Tuesday, and to Rhonda Gomez, who just this morning, a few minutes ago, became a patron. This party's for you. You too can become a part of this prestigious family by going to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show. I'm still going to press for 500 patrons. I know we're going to move slowly to it. We may not hit it in January, but we're going to press anyway. A lot of people, I want to say this, that I do basically read everything on social media, and I do basically read all the comments, even the bad comments. I'm like, I compartmentalize my dead soul with my kind soul. So I'm simultaneously able to absorb all the negative feedback joyfully. Like I eat it up and I spit it back to you. But at the same time, I read all the good comments and all the people who are actually thinking about the show and the quality of the show and appreciative of the quality of the show. And what I've been reading lately, I haven't commented because I like to stay out of these type of conversations. What I've been reading lately are a lot of people who recognize the quality of the show, the significance of my political commentary, and then they really wonder why the show is not bigger than what it is. I would just like to say to you is that we're going to make it as big as we make it together. And part of that is by you supporting and becoming a patron. I'm relentless in this. There are, I could go work for Bain Capital, not literally Bain Capital, but I could just, drop this and go back to corporate America. I didn't leave corporate America to do this. I got forced out of corporate America because of parental constraints and lack of childcare and my kids getting out of school at 2:00. And and me and my wife working in the city in Boston, one of us had to give up our careers. So I did. And then I just started doing this and just started, doubling down on it and just pouring everything I have into it. I said all that to say is that I'm here, and for all intents and purposes, I'm not going anywhere. And we're going to keep hammering at this until we get the platform size that we need to have social, cultural impact on a significant level. In the meantime, you help us get there by becoming a patron and supporting the show. So I do appreciate all of you. All right, let's shift gears. So yesterday, the impeachment proceedings commenced, and we got a full-on display of just how anti-democratic and how sycophantic, if that is a correct word, I won't even bother looking it up, the Republican Party is. And we see how far they're willing to go to maintain not even power, because they would maintain power with Mike Pence if Donald Trump was impeached. They have a doctrine of giving or ceding nothing. They refuse to cede anything. Their entire political ideology is centered around complete and total opposition, intransigence, giving up nothing, and taking everything they can possibly get. That is how they operate. And anyone who does not accept that And anyone who doesn't shift gears to fight accordingly is unequivocally not prepared to be a leader in this generation. They're not. And so as we saw that yesterday, there's a little exchange that happened on Twitter that I think is worthwhile noting, because when I tell you who these people are, you'll be like, okay. Matt Iglesias is a co-founder of Vox.com. One of the more popular, Vox. Everybody who's listening probably knows Vox.com. And this is what he said in the face of the impeachment proceedings yesterday. He said, quote, unpopular opinion. There's really only so long you can keep complaining that the GOP is an anti-democratic menace to the basic rule of law without concluding it might be smart to make some concessions to conservative cultural views to try to win more Senate races. In other words, if I was to synthesize it, it means if you really think that the Republicans are that bad, then you should move further towards their political ideology. And I think what he's saying there, or what he's trying to strategize or present to us as a strategy, is the idea that we should be so desperate to stop Republicans that we co-opt some of their social values. Which social values? I'm not going to virtue signal here, but I have to go on the tangent and say, which social values of the Republican Party, Matt, do you think we should incorporate? Caging of children? Virtue signal. I don't know. Rolling back of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, rather. Virtue signal. Which one? What particular rolling back of Obergefell versus Hodges, if they had the opportunity to take away a woman's right? Which cultural conservative values do you think we should incorporate? Okay. And so, Neera-Tanden, who's blocked me on Twitter since I called her out for getting my friend Matt Brunig fired from Demos. She's the head. I've covered her. She's the head of the largest and most well-funded, quote unquote, progressive think tanks in the country, in the world, quite frankly. Center for American Progress. She's been the leader there for some time. She's from the Clinton White House. And she replied to him saying, "This tweet made me think. Thanks for it." No, the hell, no. See, the Democratic Party has been triangulating with Republicans for 30 years. And that is precisely why we are where we are now. That has been the contribution of the Democrats to the emergence and the ascension of Donald Trump, because Democrats stopped being the party of the people a long time ago. Hell, probably before I was born. They stopped being the party of labor, and they co-opted those movements and just really kind of did what I'm going to try to throw what's the name of the Guy Debord talked about in terms of co-opting and assimilating these radical movements into almost popular culture, to sanitize it and to take away the radicalness of it, and then say, well, no, we represent labor, just not, in terms of actual policy. We represent black people, but not with any real fervor towards policy that benefits black people. Kind of like they're doing with Greta Thunberg, right? The young lady who started the climate strike. Instead of giving and enacting policies to actually affect the things that she was fighting for, they put up a huge mural in San Francisco. So that's really what the Democratic Party has done over the last 40 years. And that's precisely what gave rise to this type of Republican Party. Because here's the thing. If Democrats keep moving closer, and this is not to excuse Republicans, intransigence and downright Machiavellian style politics. They are a death cult, and they need to be put out of our misery, politically speaking. But if the Democratic Party keeps moving closer and closer and closer to the Republican Party, then the only way they can distinguish themselves is if they go into this hyper I mean, beyond, I was going to say hyper partisan, but it's beyond hyper partisan. It's just they've gone to this rabidly racist death cult of opposition that has to play scorched earth politics and now entertaining white nationalism because, well, they've always been racist. But then, two, the Democrats are trying to corner their constituency. So, I mean, if the plan is for the Democratic Party to ultimately replace the Republican Party, they're doing a good job. And this type of thinking from Iglesias and then also from Neera-Tanden is exactly the type of thinking that's going to eventually make the Democratic Party even more conservative than the Conservative Party in the UK and most conservative parties across the globe.
Yesterday at Richfield High School.
As students were proceeding through the line, if they had a balance of negative $15 or more, their hot lunch was replaced with an alternative lunch, and they also received the district policy.
They were humiliated.
Yes.
And that's exactly the opposite of the intention of our work. None of that is supposed to occur in a lunch line. Those are supposed to be private conversations.
The kid goes up with hot lunch on a tray. It is taken from them and thrown away.
So that should never happen.
Is that what happened?
That is what occurred.
This is America. I mean, wow. This is America. There is absolutely, I have to, I was thinking about this yesterday as I was getting in the car, and it's a song that plays over and over and over in my head. That not only America, but capitalism in general, it's not satisfied with you doing just well enough to not be radicalized. In other words, capitalism, and particularly American capitalism or capitalism without a safety net, like it's not, democratic socialism is just a bridge too far for capitalism. It can't tolerate it. The New Deal, where they basically try to create a middle class for poor people to aspire to, and then that was a way of getting radical people a way to be satiated and satisfied. That's not good enough. Capitalism doesn't know how to do anything but take everything that you have. And here we are at the stage where we are embarrassing children because they have to pay for school lunch and their parents can't afford to pay for it. In a society where there is so much wealth, where one man can take probably less than 0.01% of his income that wasn't taxed and pay for school lunches for everyone in this country. Those are the choices that we make as a society. That's what we say is okay. We say capitalism is telling us that it is more preferable for children in this Minnesota school to have their lunches taken away from them and thrown away. It's more preferable for them to throw it away than it is to have free lunch for every student in this country. The reason we should have free lunch for every student in this country is the same reason we have free school for every student in this country. It is because there is a direct benefit from doing this for this country, right? School isn't free because we just want to punish students. I mean, we do just want to punish students. That's why school sucks. But it's free because there's a direct connection between how well we educate our children and our GDP, period. And so we give free school. But there's a direct connection between how well students perform and how hungry they are or how dirty their clothes are. Can I tell you one of the biggest things? And when you're dealing with poor students, and which I've taught at many schools that are extremely impoverished, they do not have homes where they can wash their clothes. And they come to school hungry. And while everyone is blaming parents, you got to recognize that when it replicates itself across this country every single day, all damn day long, it is a systemic problem. You know that. But the song that keeps playing in my head over and over and over again is that capitalism will not stop until we have to destroy it. It's not satisfied with having a middle class. It's not satisfied with having a livable wage, a minimum wage that is a livable wage. It's not satisfied there. It's not satisfied until restaurant owners can actually have entirely free labor. And the expectation is that the working class and middle class who have the nerve to go out to dinner will pay all of that waiter's wages through tips. Right? It's not satisfied because it's a simple mathematics, right? Very basic thought experiment. If all that drives you is increased profits, not having a sustainable business, not having enough profit for you to live comfortably yourself or for you to invest in the next thing. No. That's not enough. It has to be more. It's always about more. Higher profit margins, ever increasing profit margins, ever increasing dividends that you give to your shareholders. It always demands more. And in a system that always demands more and never wants to give anything, or rather even worse, the way it gets it is by taking everything. That's how you get a society that allows children to be embarrassed and throw away their food. And instead of, God forbid, taxing millionaires and billionaires just enough to make sure that there's not a hungry kid in this country. In fact, we can tax them enough that there's not a hungry kid on the planet, and they'll still be filthy rich. They would not miss a beat. They would not miss a thing. They would not miss a single yacht. But it's never enough. Capitalism is never satisfied. And because of that, it will destroy itself inevitably.
They're not just commodities. The profit motive is often in conflict with the aims of art. We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. So did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. Resistance and change often begin in art, and very often in our art, the art of words. I have had a long career and a good one, in good company. Now here, at the end of it, I really don't want to watch American literature get sold down the river. We who live by writing and publishing want and should demand our fair share of the proceeds. But the name of our beautiful reward is not profit. Its name is freedom.
There's more that drives us. There's more that can drive us. There's more that can inspire us than the profit motive. Another song that plays in my head every single day is the song of the contradiction of capitalism. The idea that the only incentive to get people to go out and be creative and work is a profit motive. But the contradiction of capitalism shows us that there are so many things that capitalists will never be willing to risk because of profit. There are things that they would never do that are going to be necessary for humanity's survival because of the lack of a profit margin. And so the contradiction of capitalism is self-evident, that while there are those of us who would never wait on a profit to do what we have been, created to do, or whatever we find ourselves talented enough to contribute, capitalists would never do it simply because it doesn't yield the profit margin. And so if we build our entire society around the idea that the only people who are going to accomplish things are those people who are chasing the profit, the contradiction is self-evident. They will not do the things that are necessary for humanity to survive, especially when there is not a sufficient profit margin. And we're not just talking about making enough money to get by. We're not talking about having a large enough profit to invest in the next thing. We're talking about having a large enough profit to satisfy the greed. And that is precisely what Ursula-le-Guin was talking about in that last clip. We can't even imagine another society because we have all been born into a system that we did not create, or nor do we have any input in other than our ability to rebel against it. Ursula-le-Guin was an author. She passed away in 2018, and this was one of her last speeches that she gave. And I absolutely love how she poised it. That capitalism is no more permanent in our society than the divine right of kings. And when we see what it does to everyone at the expense of everyone to benefit so few. And it's not just, who was I reading? I think it had to be Guy Debord, when he was saying that while capitalism ostensibly alleviates poverty, it really exacerbates it. It exacerbates the desire and the want and the need to consume. And so while our basic needs, this is what he says, while our basic needs are met, or easily met, capitalism cannot thrive without us having the desire to want more and more and more and more. I think how you put it, he said, there is no glamour without envy. In other words, there is no concept of glamour without it preying on people's envy, creating new problems for them to spend their money on and to consume in order to generate a profit. And yet they have convinced every single one of us that this system is the only democratic system. This is the only way to be free, when in actuality, we are all in bondage.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.